I suppose, Beth, let me start with you. Just seeing the sheer force of fans that were out in their numbers today is a massive reminder of how far the women's game has grown.
Yeah, it was so special, and I think it exceeded everyone's expectations. I know a couple of the players were interviewed, and they said, you know, they were concerned that there weren't going to be enough people filling the mall. It wasn't the nicest day here in terms of weather in England, so I think there was a little bit of trepidation that the fans might be deterred from coming out. But fortunately, that wasn't the case. More than 65,000 fans there today to celebrate, and it marks, you know, it's such a departure from 10, 15 years ago when, you know, players were coming back from major tournaments waiting for people to greet them at the airport, and there was nobody there, whereas now, you know, they're welcomed back as heroes, and rightly so, because what they have achieved is incredible, and the legacy of what they have achieved will live on for a very long time.
Absolutely. Mark, when it comes to the women's game, they've definitely been able to deliver with these back-to-back Euro tournaments. When it comes to the men, they've got close but not quite got over the line, so it's given the England fans something to cheer about once again.
Yeah, I mean, I remember prior to the last Euros, the England men's team was sending good luck wishes to the Lionesses, and I thought it was a little bit patronising in many ways, because the England men hadn't won anything in the first place to actually encourage them to do what they could do. But now the tables have turned. You know, the Lionesses have won 2 major tournaments. They got to the World Cup final 2 years ago and were beaten by a very good Spain side. So, you know, somebody said earlier on, this is the best football team England has ever had, and I know it sounds crazy because obviously England men won the World Cup in '66, but this team has defended a title. It's the first English football team to win a major tournament away from England. So you can't kind of overstate the achievement. It's a massive achievement. And also, just to add, before the tournament started, Mary Earps, the goalkeeper who was one of the legends of the last tournament and the World Cup, and Millie Bright, the captain of the last World Cup, both basically retired last minute before the tournament, threw the squad into disarray. But England have still overcome that to win this tournament. So you have to give them all the credit they deserve. You know, Sarina Wiegman, great coach. They've done really well. And I think, yeah, you could argue that a lot of the times that I think they were only ahead for 4 minutes in the knockout stage of the whole tournament. Doesn't matter. You got to win the games. They won the games. They won on penalties. So what? They won the tournament. So very deserved. And it's great for not just women's football in England, but it's great for football in England because it encourages everybody to play, not just girls, but boys as well. I mean, it's not just, you know, limited to girls. This has been embraced by the whole country. So I think it's great all around.
Yeah, let's talk about overcoming and resilience when you take a look at England's road to glory. Obviously, they lost their opening game. They fell behind in the last 3 games that they played in this tournament, and still LA found a way to come back. A resilience that we don't always see in major tournaments.
Yeah, so let me first address that. Only Mark Ogden would find negativity in a men's team wishing a women's team good luck. What else are they supposed to say? And so, how is that patronizing?
We couldn't.
Hey, you're wishing somebody to do well in a tournament. You're wishing them good luck, and somehow that's a negative? I don't see it. In terms of the resilience, you know what happens in this sort of competitions at times is when perhaps you're not playing at your best, and all you really have to do, and all you're really clinging on to is survive and advance. Survive and advance. And the more you do that, then that has a very powerful feeling and adds a powerful feeling to a locker room, because it gives you a sense of belief that maybe it's just meant to be. Maybe we're meant to be here. Maybe regardless of the injuries, regardless of the absences, we keep advancing, we keep going through penalty kick shootouts. Nobody thinks that we're going to be able to win this. We've only led for 4 minutes and whatever the case may be in the knockout stage, but here we are. And then they get to a point in the final in which, once again, they're put in a situation in which they have to perform from the penalty kick spot, and they seem to have more confidence doing that than Spain did going to that stage. And so regardless of how England got to this point, and regardless how they go about winning this tournament, nobody, and I mean nobody, will remember nor will care as to if it was barely surviving, it was barely hanging on. In the end, who had the parade? In the end, who's raising the trophy? In the end, who are the champions? And that's the only answer that matters, and that's England.
Yes, and let's talk about Sarina Wiegman if we can as well, Beth, because she has been contributing and behind these amazing comebacks for this England team too. How has she done that?
Yeah, she's an incredible manager, and it was a real coup when she came in back in 2021 for the Football Association to actually get her in, because she was a proven winner. She'd just come off winning the Euros with a native Netherlands, so she was really in demand, and I think for the FA to bring her in was a statement of intent from them to show that they were serious about advancing women's football in England, and she has absolutely done that. And you know, she's quite an understated character. She's quite straight talking. The players have said that themselves. You know, she's been praised for her direct communication, for making sure players always know where they stand. But I think what's really clear, and it's been clearer than ever throughout this tournament, is that there's a real togetherness within this team, and you don't always see that whether in men's or women's football. When it gets to international level, sometimes, you know, there can be division between clubs and things like that, or players unhappy because they're maybe not playing as much as they would like to be. But there's been absolutely none of that this summer, or indeed in 2022 when England won it the first time. That there's such a united group, and so much of that I think is down to the manager and her communication and her ability to foster this really special spirit within the group.
You know, I was in London today, not for the parade, I should add, but I was there, and it was great to see so many mums and dads with their daughters and their sons going down to London to watch the parade. And you know, having been to a couple of these, you know, major tournaments, the women's tournaments, it's a different environment, it's a different vibe, and it's a much more pleasant vibe at times than watching the England Lionesses than watching the England men's team in many ways. It's a much more enjoyable experience. You know, going at the game, there's none of the kind of the anger to it. There's none of the nastiness. It's such a pleasant experience, but it also helps when the team wins, and the team are winning. There's so many great role models in there as well, and they are. You know, obviously the big question now is, can they win the World Cup in 2 years' time? That'll be tough, but they've got to go there as one of the favourites.
It is the big question, Beth, and obviously we're already seeing that written today across all the media in England. All eyes now on Brazil in the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, and I'm sure that this group of players and Serena Wiegmann, you know, they're a group of winners, and as soon as sort of the dust has settled on these celebrations, they'll be looking ahead to the World Cup. And obviously they came so close 2 years ago in Australia. They got to the final, narrowly lost out to Spain, and they will feel that they want to go one step further and show that they are not just the best in Europe, but the best in the world. And I think this tournament has been really interesting in the sense that England were close at one point. They looked like they could go out in the group stages, and at that point the narrative around Serena Wiegmann was, you know, what happens if they go out? Does she go? Does she need to walk? And then you look at it now and she's being celebrated, and rightly so, but it shows how fine that line is at this elite level in terms of success. So she won't be resting on her laurels. The team won't either. They will want to absolutely go one step further and win the World Cup in 2027.
Yeah.
They just barely finished with the parade, and you're talking about the World Cup already. Man, I tell you, this is why players have issues in England, huh? They just won the thing. They just raised the trophies. Well, now you got to win the World Cup. Now you got to be the best in the world. It's never enough with you people. Never enough.
Let us enjoy it while it lasts.
Well,
okay?
enjoy it, yes. That's what I'm saying. Enjoy it, and then think about the World Cup.
Okay. No updates, it would seem, on Alexander Isak's future just yet. And Newcastle coach Eddie Howe has said that no formal offer has been made for the striker just yet. Mark Ogden and Beth Lindup still with us. Mark, why is there still no word on Liverpool here and their offer?
Well, obviously, we know that Newcastle and Liverpool are both away on their pre-season tours in Asia right now, and while business can happen, it's not the best time to do business. Lots of key people are, you know, on the other side of the world. I think there's also an element of there's a strategy here. Liverpool made their interest in Isak, you know, public a couple of weeks ago, not through official channels, but a kind of a tactical leak, shall we say, a strategic leak. And now I think the situation now is that Liverpool are just happy to let the situation just let it ride with Newcastle, make the uncertainty grow to the point where at some point push will come to shove, and the Newcastle board, as Eddie Howe says, will have to make a decision. And in the meantime, this uncertainty grows. It makes Isak, you know, is he going to push for a move? Is he going to get restless? Liverpool are going to stand back. There's 5 weeks to go until the transfer deadline, so they're in no rush. Obviously, they want the player in as soon as they can, but they're not in a rush to push this, because if they go too quickly, it could become a long saga. So I think Liverpool right now are in a good position. They know that Isak is ready to consider a move. They keep hearing Eddie Howe say, it's out of my hands, it's up to the board. That to me sounds like the cracks are already beginning to show at Newcastle. Liverpool know that at some point soon they can make their move. The first bid will be rejected, obviously, that a Newcastle push for a fee. But I do think that it's a game that's being played, and by the end of the window, Alexander Isak will be a Liverpool player.
It might not come as much of a surprise to you, Beth, that our defender on the panel, Stevie Nicol, former Liverpool player Stevie Nicol, thinks that they should be putting their attentions towards getting a centre-back instead. Will there be any feeling among the Liverpool fans that there could be too many new faces in the attack?
Yeah, I think that is always the issue. I think Liverpool last season, there was a lot of talk coming into the season that they hadn't freshened the squad up enough, and ultimately they only added Federico Chiesa, who played, very few times in the Premier League, and they went on to win the title at Acanto. So there is something to be said for having a settled squad, and there's a chance that perhaps, too many new faces might, it might take a little bit of time to gel. I think from Isak's perspective, it's sort of, he's the sort of player that you push the boat out for and you take a risk for, and if Liverpool feel like the opportunity is there to bring him in this summer, then as Mark said, I'm sure they'll be keen to get that one over the line. I think in terms of centre-backs though, for me, that should be Liverpool's priority, and it is something that they are monitoring and working on. It was sort of, they were linked quite heavily to Mark Gay from Crystal Palace earlier in the window, that he's a player that they do like, but there hasn't been an awful lot of movement on that the last couple of weeks. So it will be interesting for me. I think it would be a risk for them to go into the season with just Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate. We know they've got Joe Gomez as well, but he's had to withdraw from the pre-season tour of Asia with an injury already. We know he's not got the best track record when it comes to injuries. So I do agree with Stevie there, actually. I think while Isak would be great, and I think in an ideal world Liverpool would get Isak and a centre-back, for me a centre-back should be Liverpool's priority.
Ali, how can it affect a team having too many new players to gel with?
Well, you're looking at this from the perspective of Liverpool and the group of players that is already there. But think about the players that are coming in. Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak haven't played in the same team together. So that and that's just one pairing. And you think about Ekitike, and then you think about all the other players that now have to accommodate these new faces that are coming in. My thought on Liverpool, it's very simple, and it's along the lines of something that Stevie was talking about the other day. If initially you were thinking about Dean Howson, it's because you were going to address the center-back position. That was going to be a priority for you in this window. Otherwise, you would not have been thinking about that player. Now, that player went elsewhere to Real Madrid. And since then, there's been no conversation about a center-back, and every conversation about all the attacking players. So why has this changed? Why have we gone from one end of the field to the opposite end of the field, dramatically so, and now there is very little conversation as to what the center-back position is going to be and who's going to be that player that could address some of the faults that Liverpool could potentially have in that position. They lack depth there. That's obvious to see. And so you're going to have difficulties in terms of the players coming in, playing together, and actually finding the rhythm together. And one of the things that we appreciate about Liverpool is how well the group plays together and how they did so all of last season, and how the movement of certain players, it's already automatic. You know where this guy is going to be. You know where that guy is going to be. You know, because you've played together, because you've gone through things, because you've had experiences together. And all of that takes time. And so while I understand what Mark is saying about Alexander Isak and Liverpool is in a good position and so on and so forth and this and that, they're not going to push. Well, if the priority is Isak, then they need to have him available so that they can work through some of these things before the season starts. You don't want to be doing this the first 3-4 weeks of the season, where you're going through some growing pains, and we're going to have the discussion. Well, they didn't play together. They're trying to gel. They're trying to find each other's rhythm. And you're making the job of the manager more difficult as well, because he needs to figure out, where does this guy go? Where does that guy go? Where does this guy go? And I can tell you that there aren't enough positions for the amount of players that they now have available in the attacking half. So there's going to be some musical chairs going on at Liverpool, and Arne Slot is going to have to figure it out. And that takes time. And still, having said all that, they haven't addressed the center-back position. I don't know if I totally see the game plan here from Liverpool. I could see Ekitike or Isak. I don't see both of them. And now that you're going after Isak and you're ignoring what's going on back there, I think that could be a problem.
Yeah, and there seems to be a big pot of money as well. We've already seen Liverpool spending a lot, Beth. It could be spending a lot more. I wonder how the fans have been reacting to the money that's been spent in the past. There have been complaints that they've not spent enough.
We're never happy over in England, are we? If they spend too little, there's complaints. If they spend too much, there's complaints. But yeah, I think Liverpool obviously have there's been a bit of a departure from the typical strategy of being quite frugal in the transfer market. But that being said, that they're only able to do that because they're in a really strong financial position. The past 3 transfer windows, the only incoming has been Federico Chiesa for 12 million or so last summer. And during that time, they've got back into the Champions League. They've got the revenue from winning the Premier League. So in terms of PSR and financial room, they've got plenty of headroom there. And the shrewd decision making over the past few years has put them in this commanding position. And also, we know that Luis Diaz now is imminently going to be moving to Bayern Munich. So that brings the player sales under Richard Hughes, the sporting director who came in last summer, up to 190 million. So that's in just over a year's period. They've generated that much revenue from transfers. So that's why they are able to spend. And, I do completely take Ali's point about the disruption, I guess, to the front line and players needed time to gel. But ultimately, if the players that are already there want to leave, then Liverpool need to replace them. Luis Diaz pushed to leave Liverpool. He wanted to leave last summer. They managed to convince him to stay, but the club and the player were too far apart in contract demands, in financial demands. So ultimately they couldn't get a new deal agreed, and he decided that he wanted to leave. So they have to replace him. Darwin Núñez looks like he's going to be leaving, Federico Chiesa as well. And obviously, it feels incredibly unimportant to talk about Diogo Jota from a footballing perspective, because first and foremost, Liverpool have lost an incredible human being who will be missed so deeply by everyone at the club. But he was also a fantastic player and a reliable source of goals for Liverpool, who is now no longer there, very sadly. So they also have to fill that void as well on the pitch, if not off it. So as much as I agree that in an ideal world you don't have 3, 4, 5 new attackers coming in, if that number of players want to leave, then Liverpool have to replace them.
Well, I'm all for them bringing the players in, but give them enough time. This doesn't happen so very quickly that they come in and the second day, look at us, we're flying. No. This is what building a team is all about. And you got to give the manager time to evaluate and see, where does this guy fit in? Where does that guy fit in? And where do they fit into my plans and how I want my team to play? That takes time. That doesn't happen overnight.
Yes, and we're going to find out because we're not too far away from the season starting right now. Beth, thank you so much for being with us. Mark too. We'll be speaking to you guys again very, very soon. Make sure to stay up to date with everything that's going on when it comes to the transfer window and plenty more over on our YouTube channel, ESPN FC. Mark Ogden is still with us. Rob Dawson is joining us now. He's been following Manchester United on their tour of the US. He's in Chicago now. Rob, what more can you tell us on what the feeling is in the camp at Manchester United? Are they enjoying their pre-season so far?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly the players are. It's a lot more of a relaxed tour than perhaps we've been used to in the past. United have made sure that they've got a set training base in Chicago instead of kind of moving around from city to city, which the players don't really like. They've had quite a long stay in Chicago. The hotel that they're in is right in the city centre. The players have been allowed out to shops and coffee shops in the evening after training, which obviously they quite enjoy, having that opportunity to get out of the hotel and see parts of the city. You can see Bruno Fernandes there throwing out the first pitch at a White Sox game. So obviously a lot of hard work being done on the training pitch, a lot of kind of ground to make up after what happened last season. But in terms of the players, the management, the club bosses have tried to make it kind of quite a relaxed camp, make sure the players are enjoying it, make sure they're as well prepared for the new season as possible.
What are you thinking about Bruno Fernandes there?
Well, one, no wind-up on the pitching style. I suppose I don't blame him. I'm not guessing Bruno Fernandes played a lot of baseball in Portugal. But you cannot bounce it. Priority number one, you cannot bounce this ball. Oh, no. Well, But the good thing is not a whole lot of people watching the White Sox games these days because the White Sox are terrible.
Yes, and one thing we do know is Bruno Fernandes is definitely a lot better at football.
They've narrowed it down to Ollie Watkins and Benjamin Sesko, who they feel are the two best options who are left on the market. The profiles of those two players are a little bit different, but you can kind of see where United are coming from. Benjamin Sesko is a younger player. United quite like that. They want to kind of sign younger players, someone with a possible resale value in the future. Ollie Watkins is older at 29, but is proven in the Premier League, and we've seen with what United have done so far in the market. With Cunha and Mbeumo, they've specifically targeted players who are Premier League proven because they see that as an important aspect. So, two quite different players for that position. They will only pursue one of those. They haven't made a decision yet on which player to kind of step up their interest in. There is a little bit of concern about what kind of finances would be involved in those deals, but there is hope that whether it's Sesko or Watkins, there will be room for a little bit of negotiation, because obviously everyone will know that money is a little bit tight at Man United this summer. So there's no guarantee. I don't think that a striker will arrive, but United's certainly working hard on it.
When you talk about them being two different types of player, two different profile of striker, does that suggest that Manchester United don't know specifically the profile that they want when they're in for two players that are different like this?
Well, the issue is that when it comes to top-tier talent, Manchester United are no longer in that conversation. And so then you have to come to, well, what's after that? What's just below that? And just below that, then you start finding players that are good pieces to have, but they're not particularly game changers or franchise changing sort of players. Again, you bring Ollie Watkins, it makes your team better. But does it make your team better to the point to where now you're contending for something important? Well, that's not the case. Benjamin Sesko, a player that there are a lot of things to like about him. There are a lot of things and attributes to like about him. He's a big man that can actually play well with his feet, that will look to be goal dangerous, and I think it's a player that can be more goal dangerous than whatever Manchester United have available. The other thing I would say about Benjamin Sesko is that if you're looking to play with him as a lone striker, so be it. But if you want to have players around him and him being able to combine, not the best in combining with a second striker, not the best in combining with people coming, running from behind. He's thinking about one thing and one thing only, is that I'm going towards goal and I'm going to work in and around the 18-yard box. Should be a better header of the ball than he is as a tall, strong player. Not quite the case. Look, there's potential to Benjamin Sesko, but there's also a lot of inconsistency. It depends on what you want to focus on. He was part of the good things that Leipzig did, and he was also part of the issues for Leipzig this past season.
Well, what are your thoughts on this subject, Mark?
Well, I mean, I agree with both the guys. Profile-wise, they are different, different ages. I know that they looked at both in 2023, Sesko in the January and Watkins in the summer. With Watkins in particular, they were quoted £80 million by Aston Villa, so decided that it was too much. They went for Rasmus Højlund instead, and that was a mistake. But the situation with Højlund is they took a gamble on a player with potential to become a top player in the future, which is a little bit like the situation they'd have right now with Sesko. We know he's got potential, probably ahead of Højlund was when he came to United from Atalanta, but he's still not the finished product. And I don't think United are in the position right now where they can take a gamble on such a crucial position. So at this moment in time, Ollie Watkins is probably a better bet because he is Premier League ready. You know he's going to score the goals. Yes, he's older. And Rob mentioned resale value on Sesko. A club like Man United shouldn't be signing players because of resale value. Man United are one of the biggest clubs in the world, despite the fact they're not playing well right now. They should be signing players to win trophies and to make the team better. Resale value shouldn't really come into it, but that's where they're at. And one concern for me would be if they don't know yet which one is their target. They must have a priority. They must know which one is their favoured option. It can't just be a case of who's the cheapest, because they have to have a player that fits their profile. So it does feel a little bit like not making up as he goes along, but just kind of spinning plates in the air and seeing which one drops on the floor first and which one smashes. So it's not ideal, but they're two very good strikers. But I think right now Watkins would be a better option because he's ready-made and Premier League ready.
Rob, word is that Gigio Donnarumma could be leaving PSG. Is there any talk of him potentially coming in at Manchester United?
He's a player that's been linked with him in the past. He's been linked again this summer. United do have an issue with their goalkeeper. Andre Onana has come in and has had an up and down 2 seasons, I think is the best way to put it. He's made an awful lot of mistakes, an awful lot of good saves, but lots of the fans think that he's just far too inconsistent and makes too many big mistakes to be United's first choice goalkeeper. United did make a loan offer for Emi Martinez at Aston Villa, an offer that was swiftly turned down. Villa said that they weren't in the mood to enter any negotiations unless it was for a permanent deal for around sort of 30 or 40 million. United decided that was probably too expensive. There hasn't been that much noise around the goalkeeper situation since, because it seems right now like Andre Onana, even though he's injured, is going to stay and start the season as United's first choice. So I think United's priority right now is to sort that striker role out. If they can get a striker in, maybe they can get a few other players off the books, the likes of Alejandro Garnacho, Anthony, Jadon Sancho, Tyrone Malacia, all 4 players who aren't with the squad in Chicago, who are all back home in Manchester. United need to facilitate departures for them, maybe raise some funds. If that happens and they get a striker in, then there is a possibility that they may be able to wheel and deal at other areas of the squad, the goalkeeper possibly. They also probably need a number 6. So there is the possibility of more to come, but United's message really is that they're trying to be really, really cautious in this window. Mark has mentioned there about United making mistakes in the transfer market in the past. The one thing that United don't want to do in this window is make mistakes, and they would rather stick with what they've got than make a big money mistake.
So, Mark, that would mean you would start the season in the goalkeeping position without Onana and without a new keeper coming in. Is that a concern for Manchester United?
Absolutely, because they've identified they need a goalkeeper. They wouldn't have made a move for Emi Martinez if they didn't think they needed a goalkeeper. So I think they'll sort that situation out, because Rob's talking about mistakes. Sometimes a mistake can be doing nothing. And if United do nothing in the goalkeeping department, that'll be a mistake, because Onana's not good enough. Bayande is less good enough. Tom Heaton actually is he's probably the best goalkeeper in the books, but he never plays. I think he's 40 now, so Amorim clearly doesn't trust him. The situation with Donnarumma is interesting, because PSG are about to sign Lucas Chevalier, top rated young goalkeeper, and Donnarumma's got a year left on his contract. I do wonder whether United are being used a little bit to kind of promote Donnarumma's availability. He's a great goalkeeper, Donnarumma, but in terms of his feet, I don't think he's good enough for the Premier League in terms of what United want to do. I just don't think his distribution is what a top Premier League club needs. But he's a great goalkeeper, but he won't come cheap. I just think that United are probably being used a little bit, but they do need a goalkeeper. That is absolutely clear, because the mistakes that Onana made last season were very costly, and I don't think he'll change. So the problem they've got is they've got to find a goalkeeper in the next 5 weeks.
Come on, Mark. Manchester United would be lucky to have Gigi Donnarumma, man. Come on, don't tell me that they turned down Donnarumma because he can,
absolutely
that they can't because he can't play with his feet, and that you'd rather have Tom Heaton playing with his feet. Come on, that's that.
No, you're absolutely. Listen, Ollie, you're absolutely right. Donnarumma would make them much better, but I think the way that United want to play under Amorim, the one negative of Donnarumma's game, which he can get away with at PSG because all the players around him are so good. If Donnarumma's inability with his feet is playing for Man United, that would be exposed. And as good as a goalkeeper as he is, it would just create a problem, which David De Gea had. Great goalkeeper, not great with his feet. But yes, he'd be an upgrade on what they've got, absolutely. But he'd be an expensive upgrade.
Oh, well, can I just tell you, why would Gianluigi Donnarumma leave PSG to go to Manchester United? That should be the first question.
Okay, let's stick with the subject of goalkeepers right now. James Trafford being re-signed from Burnley to Manchester City. This is said to be a record fee for a British goalkeeper, Mark.
Yeah, well, obviously he was at City until a couple of years ago, went to Burnley, and Newcastle made an offer, £27 million last week, but part of the deal that took Trafford to Burnley was that City would have a matching clause, so they were able to match Newcastle's bid and leave it up to Trafford. And Trafford has decided to go back to City. That will mean Stefan Ortega will probably leave. They'll keep Ederson, whose contract expires next year. But I've been told that City really think that James Trafford can push Ederson to become the number one. They think he can become a future England goalkeeper, push Jordan Pickford for that spot. So it's an interesting move because, I think Trafford is a very promising keeper, but he's nowhere near the finished article yet. Ederson has done it and proved it. He's had a bit of a wobble last couple of seasons. But the two of them are both vying for the number one spot. So I think Ederson will win it this season, but Trafford is clearly the long-term option at City now.
Meanwhile, Rob, while we're talking about Manchester City, word is that Nottingham Forest have made a move for James McAtee.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player that will probably leave City this summer. There's been an awful lot of interest in James McAtee from Premier League clubs, Forest being one of those, and also the Bundesliga. I think it's probably time for him to move on. He's had loan spells with Sheffield United. He's come back to City. He didn't play for City as much as he would have hoped last season. I think at his age there, 22, he feels that he really needs to play regular first-team football in the Premier League. We fully expect that McAtee will leave He's obviously had a fantastic summer with England's under-21s, winning the Euros. And I think him and his representatives just feel like even though he's kind of come through City's academy, it's just time to move on and play more regularly.
We just heard Rob there mention Cole Palmer. Could there be a situation where Man City regret letting him go, if that's to happen?
Well, yes, that's always in play. When you have young players that you think, okay, I don't know, is he going to get the minutes? We brought in other new players that we think they're going to be the ones that are going to get the brunt of the minutes. And somebody's got to go. Somebody's got to make space. And yes, in this case, the first name that came to my mind when we were about to talk about this subject and McAtee is, well, Cole Palmer. And that has to be fresh. That has to be fresh in Pep Guardiola's mind. It has to be fresh in Manchester City's mind that we let this guy walk out the door and look at what he has become. Could he have become that in our club? Well, that's an answer that we'll never actually be able to find because Manchester City decided to move from Cole Palmer. Are they going to be doing or making the same mistake with James McAtee? And is James McAtee that sort of player and does he have that sort of potential? That also is a different question. I understand the perspective of the player in this case that, yeah, if he didn't get enough minutes last season when everything was falling apart for Manchester City, I don't see how he gets the minutes that he wants in a season in which it feels like Manchester City are going to be back to close to their best or near their best.
Yes, let's continue the conversation with Manchester City. Jack Grealish has returned to training. Doesn't appear to be in the plans for next season, though. How is moving him on going, Rob?
Well, slowly is the honest answer because, everyone will know again that he was left out of the squad for the Club World Cup in June. The idea was that he would kind of go away. His representatives would go and kind of generate some interest in him and the hope was that he would kind of be moved on before pre-season training. Obviously, that not happened. He's back with the City squad. He was back training with them on Monday. City have taken a different approach with Jack Grealish than say United have with the likes of Garnacho. United have very, very clearly said that Garnacho is not part of the plans. He's been left at home. He's not on the pre-season tour. That's not the approach that City have taken with Grealish. They've welcomed him back into the group. And when we spoke to Pep Guardiola at the Club World Cup, we asked about Jack Grealish, and he did leave the door open. He said that Jack probably needs to play regularly. He wasn't getting that at City. We think that the best thing for him right now is to move on. But if that doesn't happen, they're more than welcome. They're happy to welcome him back. And there will be an onus on Jack Grealish to use his pre-season schedule now to maybe work his way back into Pep Guardiola's plans. That's not the impression that we get from City. City still expect him to leave. They think that perhaps clubs the likes of West Ham, Everton, will come in with loan offers towards the end of the window, kind of wait it out and see what's going to happen and maybe make late moves. But while Jack Grealish is a City player, there is always that prospect that he could be welcomed back and work his way into Pep Guardiola's plans. There hasn't been any kind of breakdown in the relationship between Jack and Pep. And while he's still at the club, there is always that option that he could kind of rejuvenate his career at City.
Could you see him rejuvenating his career and getting back to the player that he was?
I'll tell you how you rejuvenate your career. You're more productive. Those numbers we just show there for Jack Grealish. And I know, and I've heard this whole thing about Jack Grealish, how good he is in the group and the locker and this and that. Okay, that's great. But productivity. And those numbers tell you a whole lot about Jack Grealish and how he has come up short in what the expectations were when he came to Manchester City. And again, I'll go back to the same reasoning I just had about James McAtee. Last season was awful for Manchester City. Awful. They were looking for answers, searching for answers everywhere. And as they were trying to find answers everywhere on the field, Jack Grealish didn't seem to be a viable option for Pep Guardiola, consistently so. That sends a really strong message to the player. And so while I understand that if he's hanging around, if he's still here, yeah, there's potential that maybe he has a renaissance, a rebirth, or somehow he finds it. He may find it. I just don't think that he's finding it at Manchester City.
What do you think the future looks like for Grealish yourself, Mark?
Well, Everton are an interesting one. I think David Moyes has said over the weekend that he thinks they need 10 more players. And Grealish is a player that they really like. But I think Everton have got a bit of business to do before they kind of get the cherry on the cake with Grealish. But I think the situation with Grealish is he's a player that will just want to play. And a lot of players will sit around and demand that they get paid their full money and decide they're not going to until they get their payout. I think Grealish is different in many ways. I think he just wants to play. He's had 2 really difficult years since City won the treble, missed out on going to the Euros with England last year. I think obviously right now he's got a real outside chance of getting to the World Cup with England next year. But if he gets the right move, Everton maybe, a West Ham, maybe a Newcastle, these clubs that have been linked with him, I think he could just about get back in the squad, but he has to play, and he knows that. And City brought in Shirky, they've had Marmoush in the January window, they've got Phil Foden that's going to come back this season. It's going to be really hard for him to play at City. I think he knows he has to leave, and I think he'll get a move. He'll get a move because he wants to move, he wants to play, and that will make it a lot easier. But Rob's right, it will take a while. I think it'll be last week of the window when clubs are looking at what they've got and thinking, right, now's the time to make a move, and that's when it'll probably happen.
Okay, well, let's let Rob Dawson make like Bruno Fernandes and go and enjoy the delights of Chicago.
Well, he's going to enjoy the carnival ride he's got in the background there.
Yep, maybe that is what we always think of Manchester United's season, and maybe another one of
That's
those.
what I think of Rob Dawson, a carnival ride. So much fun.
Thanks for being with us, Rob. Mark Ogden, however, we're keeping around with us. He'll be on the latest edition of Extra Time, where Jan and the Fish has come back out again. We always love a bit of that. Check it out over on our YouTube channel. Kylian Mbappe will officially wear the number 10 for Real Madrid next season, with Luka Modric moving on. Here's some of the names that have worn it before him. Obviously, Luka Modric stand out in the number 10 shirt. Mesut Ozil had a very good run in it as well. Luis Figo wore it all the way back to the likes of Michael Laudrup and Ferenc Puskás as well. Can he live up to this number, and how does he compare to those that wore it before him, Ali Moreno?
I think he can live up to it. I must say, a few players there that you think wearing the number 10 jersey for Real Madrid, and Robinho.
I left a few out, as you will see from my...
Snyder, I don't know. Look, Kylian Mbappe will be evaluated not only by the goals that he scores, but by the titles that he wins, more importantly, with Real Madrid. He scored a bunch of goals last season. He was productive. You can't say that he had a bad season. But if Real Madrid doesn't achieve the goals that they set for themselves, then it's a bad season. It's a bad season. The numbers will tell you otherwise. Individually, yes, he was very productive. But needless to say, when Real Madrid has what we think is a down year, then everybody is part of that referendum. Everybody is part of that issue. Everybody's part of the problem. And in the case of Kylian Mbappe, I imagine that he's going to score a bunch of goals again. And I have no doubt that that will be the case this season for Real Madrid. But what I need to see from Kylian Mbappe is something different other than the goals. And I wasn't about to say other than just the goals, because the goals are the most important thing that he can do for this team. But there's another aspect to the game, especially with Xabi Alonso as the manager, who likes and demands his attacking players to press the ball. And it doesn't mean that he has to chase all over the field. All he has to do is to give a clue to the players that are coming behind him as to where the next pass is going to be. So chase enough so that you can shade the play one way, and it allows then Bellingham to go press the ball correctly, and it allows Vini to go press the ball correctly as well. Vini, by the way, also has to press the ball. It allows the players coming from behind to know where they can go and press, so that they can get not necessarily to the first pass, but they can get to the second pass and recover the ball in an advanced position. Now, nobody's going to sit here next year and ask the question, did Kylian Mbappe pressure enough with the number 10 jersey? No. People they're interested in the productivity, and he will have productivity. But the only way that this becomes a good season for Real Madrid is that he has the goals, but he's also willing to do the work on the other side of the ball. They do that, Real Madrid has enough talent to win La Liga and to win whatever they think they can win this season. If not, they'll find problems like they did in the Club World Cup.
Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. Ali Moreno is here and Mark Ogden is joining too to answer your questions tonight. Very kind of Mark to stay up very late for us tonight.
Professional. And he was in London today, he told us as well.
Yep. Celebrating the Lionesses and it coming back home.
Professional.
Yes, professional. All right, for Ali, we know Mark Ogden's favourite American food is Hershey bars. What's your favourite American food?
What qualifies as an American food? Okay. Well, I suppose that we can make this American. Pulled pork, barbecue sandwich at Lexington Barbecue in North Carolina. If you're ever close to Lexington, North Carolina, go to Lexington Barbecue. You will not be disappointed. That pulled pork sandwich is something else.
Does that sound better than a Hershey's bar to you, Mark?
It does actually, yeah. I was kind of put on the spot with the Hershey bars, but I'll stick with it. Don't worry, I'll stick with it.
Now, can I ask a question? Because when I hear those of you from the UK, one of your main complaints about here in the United States is the chocolate bars, that you much prefer the Cadbury.
It's a valid complaint.
Yeah, and yet we have an Englishman
with bad taste
saying that the Hershey bar is his favorite American food.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, explain yourself.
Maybe just got a sweet tooth and any chocolate's good, so that's probably what it is. But no, I don't know. Maybe it's just the novelty value of a Hershey bar, 'cause it has got quite a bitter taste, hasn't it? It's not quite as sweet as another brand that I can't really mention, the UK brand. You know what I mean, don't you, Kay?
I do. He just mentioned it anyway, but there's another one as well that's way above that. But each to their own, Mark.
All right.
Okay. How come when...
Sorry, was I not supposed to mention the brands? How do we identify them? How do we separate them if we don't mention the
Yeah,
brand?
one's in a purple package and one's known as being a little bit creamier. And
Okay.
yeah, but both are fantastic, and for me,
Better
than
and better.
that. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay. How come when Liverpool spend this much money in a transfer window, they don't get the same criticism from the media the way Chelsea does, Mark?
Well, because Liverpool, if you look at, I think Beth said earlier on, the situation with Liverpool is that they have earned the money through competition. They won the Premier League last year. They banked for £80 million from the Champions League. They didn't spend a lot of money last season. They've already got rid of people like Quivine Callagher, Gerald Quanta. They got £10 million for Trent Alexander-Arnold already this summer. They got £60 million for Luis Diaz. So Liverpool in a really good place financially. So whereas we can actually, you can join the dots with Liverpool's transfer recruitment. With Chelsea, it's all a bit mysterious, isn't it? They spend money and spend money and spend money, but they basically sell a hotel and a women's team to fund it. Liverpool haven't done that. They haven't sold the women's team. They haven't sold the hotel. They've sold players, they've bought players, they've won things on the pitch, and that is why Liverpool are in a good position financially. And Chelsea, it's all still a little bit hard to fathom, really.
Just before we move on, is that a new picture behind you, Mark, with a quote on it? Did you notice? What? Next to your sport piece.
Oh, this one here, the white one?
Yeah?
Yeah. It's not a new one, but it has got a quote on it, yeah.
What does it say?
It's a Stone Roses lyric. It's immersed me in your splendour. And if you know your Stone Roses, you'll know the song.
Yeah, I know my Stone Roses. We have got a music question a little bit later, so get ready. Okay, who would win in a skills challenge? Ale, this is for you. Prime Ronaldinho or Prime Neymar?
Prime Ronaldinho. Yeah, look, and Neymar can do whatever he wants with the ball, but Ronaldinho can do whatever he wants with the ball. Do it at full speed, score a goal, smile, and go dance afterwards, and then come back and do it again the next day. And maybe Neymar, that was part of the issue, that he was trying to do some of the same things that Ronaldinho was doing. Ronaldinho, higher level, I think, than Neymar. Ronaldinho, all-time great. Neymar, just a level below.
Mark, Pep Guardiola has openly criticised the club over the size of the squad, even threatening to leave if certain players aren't offloaded. Since then, the club's added 5 new signings. Was he frustrated because of their season, or is it a way out for him in case they start poorly?
I think it's frustration. I think Pep Guardiola knows that he's in the best place he could be as a coach. He will get whatever he wants at Man City. If he leaves and goes somewhere else, he will never get the same resources or the same backing or the same support. So I think it's a bit of frustration. And with Pep as well, sometimes it can be quite contrary. I think sometimes he says things he doesn't mean. I think he wants a decent-sized squad that's got good players in it. They've got a lot of competitions next season, City. They're in all the big ones, Champions League, Premier League. So he does need a big squad. But I think what he doesn't want is a squad of players that aren't good enough. And I think that was probably what he was getting at, that a lot of the players he had last season, or some of the players weren't quite up to his standards. I think some who came in January might be like that. No names being mentioned, Kuzhinov and Nico Gonzalez maybe. So I think he just wants players that are elite players. I think maybe what he doesn't want is the players that are not quite up to his standards, that are padding out his squad.
Okay. In honour of Serena Wiegmann, what is everyone's favourite Burna Boy song? I have a feeling that Kay might be the only one with an answer. I feel like Mark Ogden might know this.
I've not got a clue. You have to get. I've not got a clue. So the one that you sang, I'll tell you what. My favourite one is the one that you sang today with Serena, whatever that is.
That's her favourite one as well.
Just a quick question. What's the name of the artist again?
Burna Boy.
Yet another good question. Who's Burna Boy?
Yes, this is the artist that Serena Wiegmann was singing with today.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Burna
Nigerian
Boy.
singer-songwriter, rap star.
I don't know. I don't know that Burna Boy is singing to me. I don't know that I'm.
Maybe you should broaden your horizons.
I don't know that I'm in. I don't know that I'm in the crowd. I don't know. I don't know. Burna Boy could walk into this studio right now and I'd be like, I don't know who he is.
We've got a little road trip coming up soon, so maybe if I'm DJ, I could put a few Burna Boy songs on for you.
And you think that I'll connect with Burna Boy?
Maybe. Who knows?
It's highly unlikely, Kay.
It was one of the Backstreet Boys, Ali.
Well, hey, there you go. Hey, Boys to Men. You can do a little Boys to Men.
Yeah.
I can get romantic. I can get romantic with it, Mark. I just don't know who Burna Boy is.
Okay. Well, as soon as I
Join the club.
See, and he's local.
Okay, we'll go for City Boys soon.
Okay, well, can you answer?
Okay, I'm not singing or rapping or doing any singing.
No, wait a minute. For clarity, can you mention your favorite song of Burna Boy?
Yeah, City Boys.
City Boys is the song for
Yeah, but I'm not gonna do a Serena, okay?
Okay.
You gotta give us something.
If I ask my teenage daughter, will she know?
Yes. That's why I thought you might know, but then I remembered in the show you didn't.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
My fault you're hanging on to your teenage years,
and things like that.
My teenage years were dancing at the end of the school disco, which we called a disco, to Boys to Men.
All right, there you go. See, there you go. Not Burna Boy.
No.
I'm pretty sure Burna Boy was not alive.
Probably not. Should Bayern have signed Rodrigo, Ale, instead of Diaz? He's younger, he's won Champions Leagues, he's scored in big games, and he has a higher ceiling.
Well, I don't want to be Mr. Grammar here.
Oh, don't. I already just ignored it, and I know
Well,
what you're gonna do.
higher. Well, ceiling is misspelled. Just saying. Regardless, I disagree that Rodrigo has a higher ceiling. See, at this point of his career, we kind of know what Rodrigo is. Now, there seems to be a group of people that believe, including Rod Luca here, that Rodrigo can take his game to an even higher standard, an even higher level in which he can be the guy and carry a team. And that may very well be the case, but not at the level of Bayern Munich. He could do that for a mid-table team, for a Europa League team, but not for a team that is looking to be European champion. The reason I preferred Luis Diaz for Bayern Munich to Rodrigo is because of the way that Bayern Munich plays and the demands of Vincent Kompany. And I mentioned this a couple of days ago. He wants his attacking players to be able to press the ball. And Luis Diaz did that naturally with Liverpool, does that naturally with Colombia, and will do that naturally with Bayern Munich. Rodrigo, you have to force him to do that. The other thing is, Luis Diaz is not looking to be the guy. He knows Harry Kane is there. He knows that Bayern Munich and the brand of Bayern Munich is a very powerful brand. And he knows he's there to have a specific role in which he can thrive, and he can allow others to thrive as well because he can create for himself and for others. I think it, as I mentioned a couple of days ago, it's a really good fit that I believe Bayern Munich just kind of stumbled upon and have found themselves an answer that I think makes more sense, especially when as compared to Rodrigo.
Okay. Mark, who should be the #1 goalkeeper for Liverpool, Alisson or Mamadashvili?
No, Alisson all day long, because Alisson's a guy that's proved himself. He's one of the best in the world, and Mamadashvili might become that, but he had a he didn't have a great season at Valencia last year. He kind of redeemed himself towards the end, but he's still got a lot to prove, Mamardashvili. He's great potential. You couldn't say right now that Alisson should be dropped in favour of Mamardashvili. So I think you stick with Alisson because you know what you're getting with him. You know he's a great goalkeeper, and also, you know, Liverpool's defence has had a bit of a turnaround this summer. They've got a new left back in Kirkes, they've got a new right back in Frimpong. They may end up with a new centre half. What you don't need is a goalkeeper added to that situation as well. So you need Alisson, certainly for the start of the season, to make sure you've got some sort of stability and consistency. So yeah, Alisson all day long.
Just don't ask Mark about Gigi Donnarumma.
No. This is what I heard in the show. He said he would take Tom Heaton over Gigi Donnarumma. That's what I heard.
Okay, Mark Ogden, literally Mark Ogden here. With City signing James Trafford back to the club, is this another reason why they shouldn't let their gems leave at all?
Well, that's a good point, but City will argue that they've allowed James Trafford to go on loan, not go on loan, but go to Burnley for 2 years, build up great experience, and they basically got him back for what they consider £13 million. They sold him for 14, they bought him back for 27 million, so it's a £13 million deficit. So that's not a bad investment over 2 years to spend £13 million and get your goalkeeper to be, you know, international level recognition, had a great couple of years at Burnley, so I guess they'd have done the same thing with Cole Palmer if they could. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you let them go, sometimes you bring them back. But I think City brought the guy back and see if he can be the number one. My view on Trafford is that I don't think he's quite ready yet for Man City, but we'll have to wait and see. City have decided that he is, but he's still only young, so we'll see what happens there.
Mark hates goalkeepers. Okay, what advice would you have given, Ale, to a young João Felix 7 years ago regarding his career path and what he would need to do to reach his full potential?
Oh man, well, so many things, but don't take for granted what you have in front of you. Don't take for granted your talent. Don't take for granted the work that it takes to be great every single day. Look at the guy in your national team by the name of Cristiano Ronaldo and see the guy who has achieved everything there is to achieve, and he's still pushing himself. You're just young and up and coming. You need to push yourself to that level if indeed that's the greatness that you want to achieve. And listen, pay attention every single day. And if Diego Simeone asks you to run through that wall, you run through that wall. And he would not have listened one bit. Because at some point, it has to be within you to know what it takes, to recognize what it takes. And João Felix never found that level of maturity to demand and gain the very best from himself whenever it counted the most.
Oh, Ale, I wish he'd listened to you in the beginning.
Well,
might have been a little something that he could have taken with him.
Maybe. I said this very clearly and kindly. I don't think I would have been nearly as kind with him. The conversation would have been a little bit more direct and perhaps with some aggression.
Perhaps.
Maybe. Because I don't think that the message with him really, I don't think he would take it in right away. And so we would need a couple of sessions.
Yes. Okay. We've got to go because we've got to all go and listen to some Burna Boy songs to catch up.
Okay, wow.
Cool. All right. You too, Mark. That's your task. You can impress your teenage daughter with your knowledge of Burna Boy, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for sending in your questions.
It's highly unlikely that I listen to Burna Boy on the way home.
With some new music tastes.